guys. So really nice to see everyone again. So today is another Mira webinar. So we are having this series of Mira webinar if you have been following us. And today is a really interesting topic, which is about mood swing. So I think everyone must have had mood swing, and I have this pretty badly during my pregnancy, and I know the hormone has been affecting that. So today we're gonna have some scientific discussion about this. I don't think this has been the topic that has been talked extensively, and I think this needs more awareness. So today I'm really happy to have Dr. Tara Brandner, and Dr. Tara is the doctorate nurse practitioner and a fertility coach, and she's very experienced in hormone tracking and also female hormone and reproductive medicine, and she has her own practice, and she also is an expert in Marquette Natural Family Planning methodology as well. So I really appreciate, Dr. Tara, you being here, and maybe Dr. Tara, you can say hello to our audience and just introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for being here, and thanks so much to Mira and the team for having me here. This is a passion of mine, and of course, like many, it came from my own journey of miscarriage and infertility and IUIs and IVF and then into motherhood I had kind of a traumatic pregnancy and bleeding, and then had postpartum anxiety. And so just really seen a lot of gaps in the healthcare system and throughout my experience, and just things that can be improved that I hope I've transitioned and carried over into my own practice, just to make this whole road and journey and understanding and knowledge more available and understandable, and to feel more supported no matter where you're at in your journey.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Blender. So we think we will highly look forward to your presentation and to your introduction today about the hormone and about what we're gonna do with our mood swing. So for most of you guys here, you probably already know me. So I'm Sylvia. I'm the CEO and co-founder for Mira. And I started Mira because there's so many friends around me, and we don't really think about starting to have a kid until 30 years old or later. And unfortunately, the OPK doesn't really help us over the counter ovulation prediction kits. It's not personalized, and it creates a lot of confusion, even more stress during our fertility journey. And unfortunately, many of my friends eventually had to go through IVF or IUI and out-of-pocket cost, multiple cycles with failures between. So it's very frustrating, and that's why I started Mira. And I really want to help our fellow women who are trying to conceive or trying to understand our cycle, to be more having more scientifically based data to understand our body, so we know how to have more control, and we know what's going on. Maybe we should change our lifestyle or improve our nutrition or exercise pattern, or what's the time to really see the doctor to not be too late. So that's a whole idea behind the Mira, and we will have some discussion about Mira later in this webinar. And here I just want to again say hello to everyone who are here. So really welcome. If you can comment in the chat about where you come from, and we can say hello to each other. Usually we have a pretty global audience, and we usually have people from Europe and from Australia, from the US, so everywhere. So again, I'm just saying hi to everyone here, and feel free to chat and to just to comment on where you come from. Great. I saw Alexandra come from Chile and now based in Berlin. So that's typical example about how global our audience is at here.
That's wonderful.
So yeah, see Manchester, that's great. Welcome everyone. So here just the short disclaimer. So everything we're talking about here is not to replace your medical advice. This is just to trying to help us to understand better about our body. If you feel like you need some diagnosis or any treatment, and please go to your doctor. And before we start, we like to have some polls for you. So we like to understand what's your goal, and what are you looking for from this webinar. So you will see three screens on your three questions on your screen, and then please help us to answer that. Okay, so trying to Here's the first question. Okay, great. So you should see 3 questions on the screen. So we saw 50% of the users are Mira users, and they're tracking fertility hormone level. Okay, so the answers are getting in. We'll give you another 5 more seconds. Okay, so we have about the roughly about the 20% people are actively trying to get pregnant, and about 29% are curious about our our fertility health in general, and 52% is having a big problem of mood swing. And you're at the right place right now, so this is the right place for this topic. And about 38% is they do have mood swing, but it doesn't really bother them too much. Okay, great. Thank you for that information. So without further ado, I will give it back to Dr. Tara. So Dr. Tara, you can feel free to take over the screen and talk about whatever you want to share.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again so much. I'm excited, everyone. I hope you all walk away with a little more information and empowerment to really be in control of your healthcare. And we're going to talk more about that as well. So today we're going to talk about hormones and mood swings. And I tried to break this down without going too far into anatomy on how this all works. And so I really want to begin with just a high level look at your menstrual cycle. What is actually happening to our hormones during our menstrual cycle? So we begin with the actual process of menstruation. And that's a time where low levels of all of the hormones are happening. Things are resetting. We have the shedding. That is what's going on. Directly after that comes our follicular phase. And we start to see some higher levels of estrogen start. Our progesterone levels stay on the low end. At ovulation time is when that peak and drop of estrogen happen, which you can see awesome with our Mira tracking machines. And you still have that lower level of progesterone happening. And then in the luteal phase, our estrogen levels are low, and that's when we see the high progesterone happen. So this is just something I like to share, break it down super, super simple. Our key 2 hormones that kind of impact and see waves happening here throughout our monthly cycle. And you'll see that in this chart as well. It's super easy to understand, in my opinion. I think my patients, myself as a provider too, simple is key. And so you can really see a nice diagram here of that ebb and flow of our estrogen. That progesterone kind of stays low right underneath that. We see that progesterone go up in a normal, well-balanced cycle is what we're looking at here. And then the LH, FSH, you can see in the bottom half as well. So what are our key hormones? And I would guess we just talked about estrogen, progesterone, but many maybe aren't aware that there's so many hormones involved in our day-to-day, cycle-to-cycle routine. So we're going to begin with estrogen. And this can be referred to as a neurostimulant. It has that antidepressive effect. And it has an effect actually on neurotransmitters inside of our brain, which isn't often thought of. And that goes with that dopamine and serotonin. And these are essential chemicals to boost our mood. So when there's too much or there's too little of estrogen, we see mood swings, irritability, aggressiveness, anxiety, that sluggish feeling, depression, and we see fluctuations occur during our cycle, but sometimes those with PMS, which we're going to get to later, perimenopausal, we see irregular fluctuations of this happen. And we see a variety of different symptoms. And right away from the beginning, I want to just state, as we're talking about symptoms and things, know that you don't need all of them, that we're talking about 1 or 2. If that fits you, that's kind of follow along and keep thinking in the back of your mind, maybe there's a little imbalance going on. Progesterone. This tends to provide a calming effect on our brain. When levels are low, it tends to present more like anxiety symptoms. testosterone. And I like to always share both men and women have a little healthy balance of this hormone, but of most hormones, we have a nice little balance. And it's needed for our physical and our mental functions. So when our testosterone levels are too low, we feel sluggish. We notice maybe we're not building muscle mass or tone like we would like to our muscles. Our sex drive is impacted. We also can see anxiety-like symptoms, depression-like symptoms, lack of energy, and mood swings happening when our testosterone's off. The thyroid hormones. And so this impacts our weight, our energy, our internal temperature system, too hot, too cold, that kind of thing. Skin, hair loss, nail growth, and our overall metabolism too. So weight issues, we want to be thinking thyroid hormones. Serotonin, dopamine, these are responsible with preventing depression and mood disorders. So they play a key role right beside all of these hormone actions. Cortisol, we call this one the stress hormone. And I'm going to try to avoid using the word stress so much. I've kind of renamed things a little bit, but it's responsible for many things. Our immune system, how we digest certain foods like fats, proteins. Too much makes it hard for us to concentrate. We can once again feel anxious and depressed. You're going to see that key throughout. We start to worry. We might have weight gain, not able to sleep. And that kind of goes along with our cortisol levels too. Insulin. We know with high insulin levels, this tells our ovaries to make more testosterone. And when we have too much testosterone going on as a female in our bodies, we see the facial hair, the acne. It can lower our sex hormone, which means it's dumping estrogen into our system. So we're going to have high estrogen, which we'll talk about here in a little bit too. And this can contribute to a whole variety of symptoms in itself. So insulin is very important throughout our day-to-day and our cycle. And then melatonin. This is the sleep hormone that we often think of at nighttime. It has to be at, the right levels too, so make sure you're sleeping. But having too much or too little can lead to some depression symptoms as well. And so let's look at the regulation process. How are all of these regulated? Like, what is going on in our body? So once again, I'm going to try not to go too far into anatomy, but let's take a look at our endocrine system. So thyroid. So this is our TSH, our T4, our T3, and I'm always looking at antibody levels with these two. But this is any deficiency where it's too high, too low, causes our neurotransmitters once again to not work properly. They also impact our blood glucose levels, which is that stress hormone response again happening, and really play a key role. And you'll see throughout here too how important our thyroid actually is. Our ovaries, they are responsible for estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Our pituitary gland is located in the brain, and this one throws my patients off a lot. So prolactin is one of the main hormones it's responsible for. And if we see an elevation, we instantly want to gather an MRI scan of our head to make sure there's no tumor. Most of these tumors are benign, but my patients get really confused when they're like, I don't get it. We were checking for sex hormones and looking at our reproductive system, and now you're scanning my head. But it's because that little gland is located in our brain, and it's also responsible for FSH levels, which you've heard of, LH stimulation, growth hormone, and TSH works hand in hand with that, just to name a few. Our pineal gland is responsible for melatonin. Our parathyroid gland works hand in hand with our thyroid and regulates calcium levels. Our adrenals are located in our chest kind of area. So once again, a little confusing too, but cortisol, aldosterone, and adrenaline are actually responsible in the adrenal system. And then our pancreas, and that's what the insulin, glucagon, and helps regulate all of those levels of glucose every time we're eating something really important throughout the day. So let's dive into some signs and symptoms. And I want you to remember right off the bat, you may have 1, 2, 5. Don't compare. I tell my patients all the time, if it is a symptom that is affecting you, then it's important, even if it's one of them. So let's take a look at some of these. And so we look at PMS symptoms. Now we might think, well, some is normal, right? We're going to kind of look at that a little bit later on, at which ones are maybe more concerning. But when these are heightened, when we see an imbalance, is when our normal PMS symptoms are really heightened throughout the month. Anxiety, mood swings, panic attacks. You're like, what is going on? Like, you have these random panic attacks that maybe aren't situational or happening more often. Weight gain, it came out of nowhere. What is going on? I am doing everything I can, and I cannot, lose this weight. Where did it come from? Hair loss. We all have our own definition of what's acceptable for hair loss, but if you're like, I'm combing and the shower is full, or your significant other is like, you're leaving the globs of hair on the shower wall, like I maybe do, anybody else do that? That they're like, what, you have a lot of hair loss, looking for signs of that. Excessively cold hands and feet, especially if you're doing things to try to warm your feet up and you're like, I'm wearing thick slippers, blankets, heaters are going, and I cannot keep my feet warm. Insomnia, consistent episodes of insomnia that are not related to perhaps something major going on in your life, or it's consistently happening at certain parts of your cycle. Fatigue. When I do my patients' questionnaires, I'm asking about their sleep. How are you sleeping? Are you falling asleep? Are you staying asleep? But the big question I ask at the end is, do you feel rested the next day? Do you feel like you could crash at like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Or when you get home from work, you're like on the couch, done for the evening? These are alarming red flags, as we'll call them. Memory problems. Like, you're just like, what is going on? I cannot remember things, and you're forgetting things. And it kind of comes on out of nowhere, is happening at certain times of the month. Irregular menstrual periods. And irregular and regular to some might vary, right? But I like to say, if you are kind of bouncing all around, you're 27, 35, 32, 40, don't have one every other month, red flag. And it never hurts, if you're not sure if you have irregular menstrual periods, to sit down and work with a provider, or work and learn and track and really get a good picture if they are irregular, because we might assume that they are regular and come to find out that they are not. Bloating. We don't think of the GI system as being hormone related, but it is regulated. When we're going to talk about that in a little bit, with some excess estrogen and how important our stomach and GI system actually is to our overall health. Swelling and tenderness in the breasts. And we see, like, if they are just so painful, over a little bit, right, is normal. A healthy balance of some of these, it is when it is excessive or more noticeable, or it just doesn't feel comfortable and right for you. And then we have the good old decreased sex drive. And I see so many feeling that perhaps this is normal, and to an extent it can be, but like if it's consistent or through your whole cycle, it is just gone. We need to take a peek at those hormones. And so here I added signs and symptoms of estrogen excess. And I did this for a couple reasons. It looks pretty similar to just general hormone imbalance, but I like to use my own story of trying to figure myself out. I had thought, okay, through my pregnancies and miscarriage, I had always been on progesterone and always had supported that. So I assumed that my progesterone levels were low. And when I did a deep dive and got testing done, and putting 2 and 2 together, it's really hard to take care of yourself if you're in the medical field. Don't do it. Don't recommend doing that. I have endometriosis, and I should have known that tends to produce excess estrogen. And the symptoms of too low of progesterone and excess of estrogen kind of look alike. And here I had way too much estrogen going on. And so we'll see things like irregular periods. You can have regular periods with this as well, but that low libido, the bloating, swelling and water retention. I like to think that this is related to cardiac diseases, and I see it more in my elderly population when I used to work in that area of medicine. So if we're seeing young women and reproductive age women with this swelling, we're going to want to think of course, ruling out other big things, but let's look at our hormones too. Good old mood swings. If we're seeing those moods kind of go back and forth and all over, but then the brain fog, difficulty focusing as well. So just things to keep in mind, that they might not always be low, or we're always thinking our hormones are low. We can have too much going on as well. I wanted to throw in here some common diagnoses that we see with hormone imbalance. And the first one we kind of talked about a little bit earlier is PMS. And this consists of mental and physical symptoms caused during that low estrogen phase of the cycle every month. And this might look like, the depression symptoms, anger outbursts, irritable, crying, anxiety, foggy brain. You don't want to do anything. Like, you're saying no to things that you once said yes to. You just don't feel like going out and doing anything. Inability to sleep, or you're napping more. And so it's when these things are heightened. And once again, I always tell my patients, are they affecting your day-to-day routine? Because if they are, we need to take a look at that. PMDD isn't talked about enough, and that is the more debilitating depression aspect of our cycles. And the hard part about this is that it's an abnormal reaction to normal hormone changes that happen with our menstrual cycle. And the hormone changes can cause this serotonin-like deficiency to happen. And the hard part is it does not always occur the week before you bleed. The length of symptoms might vary. Not all women have a classic 28-day cycle, so it can happen at different times. We don't always ovulate on day 14. And so it just really, I think, gets overlooked and missed a lot. But we get a lot of psychological symptoms. Once again, that fluid retention, neurological symptoms, dizziness, fainting, skin changes, acne, the stomach issues, again, the nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, and many other things. So I think it's becoming more recognized and talked about in the medical field, but definitely something that there is a particular way to approach this. And if that's you, I really want to just empower you to reach out to your healthcare provider and have a further discussion on that. Postpartum depression and anxiety. So I've become really passionate about this. In my practice, I'm actually going to become certified in postpartum support international in December to be a provider through them and to really just dive deeper into this side of women's health. But this is commonly triggered by that sudden drop in estrogen and progesterone that happens shortly after birth. And then it doesn't, our body doesn't kick back in like it should or used to or does in others. And so just really being aware of yourself or friends and family members, I really want to empower you as well. And I use the word empower because I don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't reach out to somebody or that they are bothering or it's not a big deal. I want to empower you guys to speak up and say, hey, I think something's going on. And well, once again, I love my empowerment speech for you guys at the end. But let's take a look at some causes. What are some other causes in addition to the ones we just talked about? If that's not you, let's take a look at some medical conditions. So common ones include PCOS, hypo or hyperthyroid, eating disorders, and of course the pituitary tumor that I kind of talked about earlier, just some common ones. Certain forms of birth control. I see women all the time, we're not feeling well on it. We get depressive symptoms, irritable, loss of pleasure and inability to do activities again, weight gain, fluid retention, once again, and even some suicidal thoughts. And so it's really an important prescription medication that providers need to be working closely with you to make sure that you're not feeling any of these things if you are in any form of birth control as well, and kind of change the dosing. Each pill or injection or implant has different levels of estrogen or just progesterone in them that we can adjust. Our menstrual cycles can impact our hormones, and in turn they create, during our menstrual cycle, we can see hair changes, our skin, our poop, that diarrhea or constipation, either one. Mood swings, migraines, just menstrual cycles in general can be a cause of fluctuations. And our cycles vary day to day. They don't necessarily always stay the same. Even on a most perfect 28-day cycle, sometimes we'll see that ovulation date or certain dates fluctuate. And then lifestyle and environment. If we are leading an unhealthy diet, trans fat, if we're not sleeping, and sometimes that's out of our control, but lack of sleep really impacts us. And I'm going to talk more about that in here in a moment. Chemicals, the products and ingredients and things around us, environmental pollutions, things like that. And this is the last time you'll hear me refer to stress levels, but that is part of it. We're going to talk about a different way to think of that stress level in just a moment here. So what can you do? What are some things that are in control that you can do to take a look at this? And one of them is nutrition. And so eating foods that are higher on that glycemic index, we know can cause some changes with our blood glucose, our insulin levels, like we talked about. And this in turn can lead to some physical symptoms, but also mood swings. Think back to a time where you got hangry because you skipped a meal or you missed a meal, and that hangry effect actually has some hormone impact to it as well. So we want to be looking for foods, healthy fats. Of course, our fruits, our vegetables, our leafy greens, but something simple too is some flaxseed in a smoothie. Cooking with some spices and seasonings that are ginger, turmeric, garlic, paprika, little changes like that. I don't want you to think carbs are bad. Let's just go to healthy carbs. And some of my favorite healthy carbs are sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, fruits, especially berries, but really I'm a big promoter of fruit in general. Chickpea and lentil pasta has become a little hack for myself. It has some nice protein in it as well. And oats. And then eating to stabilize our insulin. And what does that mean? I want you to think maybe more or less of thinking of eating more often versus not at all. Especially if you're not eating a lot or you're trying fasting and it's not working for you. It works for some. If it doesn't work for you, try flipping your switch to eat every 3 to 4 hours. Pair some proteins with your snacks and meals. And then I have an 80-20 rule because life, right? So 80-20 for me looks like if I'm going to be at an event, and the holidays are coming and really a lot of cultural events revolve around food, please eat the food. You get to eat the food. I don't like restricting. You enjoy it. And then the next meal or the next day or the next week when you return, you get back on to that 80% lifestyle of following the best you can. Exercise. Studies have demonstrated that a significant decrease in that total circulating amount of estrogen happens with exercise. And so we also know that it affects our stress hormones and sex hormones and metabolic hormones. And we just know that it's overall healthy for you. But my number one rule is, what do you enjoy doing? You have to enjoy doing the form of exercise. So really exploring, there's so many different things out there from centers to home workouts nowadays. You have to enjoy doing it. Because if you're going to try to wake me up and at 6 a.m. and have me doing a program that I don't enjoy, I'm just not going to do it. So give yourself some grace. Find something you enjoy doing. It can look like a walk, going for walks. I just recently, it's right beside me, purchased a walking pad. I do more sitting than I like to confess, so I got a walking pad. I also live in the Midwest. There's snow on the ground now. And so walking after bigger meals or after your meals will help stabilize your blood sugar. A nice combination of weights and cardio, 3 to 4 times a week of your weights and strength training, and then doing some cardio after or before, whatever works best for your schedule, helps us utilize our insulin better. HIIT workouts, depending on where you're at with that, I like to say doing about 2 a week if you enjoy it. Be careful if you're noticing, man, I'm doing these really, high intensity workouts and I'm not losing, I'm actually gaining. I want to encourage you to try to pull back a little bit and see if doing less helps, because our cortisol levels tend to go high. And in some of you, your body may not like that. And so it's just kind of playing around with things and not knowing that your body, every body's body is different. You might not be able to do the same thing as your friend or your partner. Of course, yoga. Yoga has many great benefits. Mood, during your cycle, it's something nice and calm you can do. And we know it helps decrease our hormone, our androgen, which is our male hormone levels, and keeps them lower. Sleep. So we know from studies that less than 6 hours of sleep has an impact on our hormones. Especially true with sleep as shift workers. I used to be a shift worker. It just physically never felt well. I would get physically sick from doing them, and some handle them and prefer them. But we know that there's an impact on our melatonin, our cortisol, our circadian rhythms become imbalanced, and we see this like wonky hormone type of thing happen as well. So my tips are always room darkening blinds, love them. But then when you go travel, like I just did last week, and you don't have your room darkening blinds, it gets to be a little hard. Sound machines, I like pink, brown, and white noise. Keeping your room cooler. Sometimes I go and put on a meditation, a guided sleep meditation, if I need a little extra boost. And then decreasing screen time, which is hard for some, me being one of them, but I've really tried to work at that over the years. And then, of course, if you absolutely need, you can consider a little bit of melatonin if approved with your healthcare provider. So decreasing intake of alcohol, smoking, and this includes vaping. We just know that there's a decrease in hormones such as LH, testosterone, progesterone that occur with this, and at times an increase in our estrogen FSH. So we know there's some imbalance in our hormones that happens when there's an excessive intake of those activities going on. Supplements, I truly feel supplements should be really individualized based on your needs after some testing. Some basic ones, though, of course, if okay with your healthcare provider, that I recommend is vitamin D, fish oil, and my fish oil hack. If you cannot handle capsules, number one, you can try freezing them. And number two, there's liquid, and the liquid works better for myself and many of my other patients as well. There's packets and bottles of it, so it's an easier way to kind of get that in. A quality prenatal, probiotic, and then vitamin B6 and some other trace minerals are really known to help contribute positively to our moods. Okay, no more using the word stress. We're going to switch it to self-care. And I'm going to use my own activity. This once again goes back the same as exercise. You have to enjoy it. If you're going to tell me to like the closest place to get a pedicure for me is like 100 miles away, that's not really the most ideal self-care for me. I like reading sometimes, movies occasionally, but for me, I love watching reality TV. And this time of year, when it's snow on the ground, I like a warm hot chocolate. It turns my brain off. So really giving yourself grace to do the things that do bring you joy and improve those neurotransmitter levels too every now and then, and giving yourself time, scheduling it in, and giving yourself permission to do that. Tracking your symptoms. So if you're concerned, I want to encourage you to really start tracking the dates, the time, how often is it occurring. So when you do go speak to your provider, they can get a nice full picture of what's going on. Hormone testing, and then finding a provider who's trained and has this really deep understanding of hormones and hormone balancing. And they're going into the tests that are available beyond blood work to determine if your hormones are an issue and what is kind of going on at that deeper level, because many patients come to me after their previous providers have said, all your blood work's normal. And there's I can honestly say pretty much every time, 99.9% of the time, they have not done all of the blood work. But I also do a urine test called a Dutch hormone test on a lot of my women, or some other forms of that level of testing that are available to dig deeper and see better what's going on based on your particular time in your cycle. Create a healthcare team. This is something that I am hugely passionate about. I think many of us feel, I use the term married to our one provider, and we rely on them to get everything right. And we go back to them time and time again. And I want to give you permission and space to grow your team. You can still keep that one provider, maybe a primary care provider, an OBGYN, but consider adding an additional person to your team, or 2 or 3 that have this better understanding and understand hormones, especially a little bit deeper, and have some other testing and treatment options available to better approach this from a approach that works best for you. And maybe not always the prescription medication method as well, unless that, of course, is a decision that you feel okay with. But if you want to try other things, don't be scared to go outside of your 1 or your 2 people team. I believe healthcare should be individualized in a plan that fits your needs, your schedule, your preferences. So giving yourself permission, finding a healthcare provider and team that creates that type of environment for you. And of course, you feel heard. You have trust with that healthcare provider. Communication should be two-way. You should feel comfortable. You should never feel belittled or crazy. I hear my patients coming to, they literally have been told to get like a psychological evaluation because of some reproductive symptoms they're having. You should not feel rushed. You should feel like you had the time that you deserve with your provider, and it's a two-way conversation. And sometimes you can do all the things above and you still just don't feel like yourself, or seeing that shift in your mood happening. I just want to give you permission and empowerment to seek out a healthcare provider, know that it's okay, and to really just, once again, take back, I didn't click ahead here. Take back control of your health and know that it's okay to step out sometimes of that modern medicine approach and to really get the care that you feel is appropriate for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Tara. I think that was a fantastic presentation. It was so comprehensive and very easy to follow. So
yes,
thanks for doing that.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And I saw a lot of questions in the comment too. So again, just to remind that, so if you have any questions about, during the webinar, feel free to type in the chat. There is no other section, specifically designated for question, but our moderator will, filter all these comments and will, mark them as question, and we will answer them at the end of this presentation. So after Dr. Tara's talk, and I'd like to give a little bit introduction about Mira. So Mira is the palm-sized lab test for your home. So this is the specifically testing hormones, and we test multiple hormones. So right now, if you purchase Mira, we test LH, estrogen, progesterone, and FSH. And we're in the development for HCG, and which tracks your pregnancy. We're in the process for that. So all this happened with the same Mira analyzer, which you can see on the screen, and the different, like a variety of disposable Mira test ones. So those are to sample your urine, and the results come out are all numeric. So that means we use the different technologies in the traditional OPK or some other products on the market, and so we can get the lab grade accuracy. It's pretty equivalent to what you're doing in the blood test in the lab. So you will get your actual hormone number, like how much is the hormone you have today, and this number will be transferred to the Mira app. And on the Mira app, there is the function to plot your cycle, to do comparison, to do analysis, and the personalized information. So everything here is pretty personalized. We don't use the so just like OPK, we don't use like a fixed threshold to determine, okay, now you're positive, you're ovulating, you're not ovulating. We don't do that. We take every single person as an individual, and we have a big data behind this algorithm. It's quite smart, and it will tell you, what does this number mean for you. And also being very different from the OPK that we already test for hormones. So as Dr. Tara mentioned, and to understand, not everyone will ovulate on the day 14, and to really understand mood swing hormone imbalances, you want to take a look at a whole bunch of hormones at the same time, because your body works as a whole thing. Some hormones might be regulating other hormones, and not just being looking at a single hormone by itself. So as I said, we mentioned a little bit, compared to the ovulation prediction kit, because we use the completely different technology, our hormone range are very unbeatable. It's very high. It basically means if your hormone fluctuate, you have really low hormone level, you have a high hormone level, and the Mira has a really broad range to detect that. And also everything we do here is 100% personalized. We don't use any fixed threshold to measure your hormone. And when we give you the tips, like what you should do, is this ovulation, is this fertile window, does this mean ovulation has already happened, are you already close to menopause? Those are all the examples of information we give to users in the app after the testing. All these are personalized. And also we are able to show your whole pattern. So we're not just say, oh, here's a peak, and then here's the based on the population average, but it's more about the how your cycle has been different compared to your last cycle, compared to maybe even half a year ago. And that's very important for people with hormone imbalances, PCOS, and also if you're trying to understand the correlation between your mood and also the hormone pattern. So as I mentioned, we track FSH, estrogen, LH, PDG right now. So PDG is the urine metabolite of progesterone, and we have many trusted customers. More than 50,000 people have chosen Mira to guide their fertility journey. And we recently this year we launched a new bestseller. It's the Mira Max test ones. So Mira Max is testing LH, estrogen, and the PDG all together on the same test wand. Okay, so you don't have to sample your urine multiple times. You don't have to wait. And same as other products, every Mira test is doing the actual numerical concentration, actual hormone concentration. And now we're running a Black Friday deal. So if you purchase more than $100 on the Mira website, just use the code Black Friday 20. So you can get 20% off. That's on all the products. And the Mira's website is miracare.com. And we also launched another new product this year, which is the ovum test wand. Ovum means the testing the FSH. So FSH is a hormone that is to understand your fertility level. So this means how close you're to perimenopause. And some people are like, oh, I'm still young, and the menopause is still far away, but there's a lot of people the perimenopause, which means the early stage of menopause starts after 35 years old. And many of us are still trying to conceive or thinking about to have a second baby after 35 years old. So it's good to understand, has this been a factor that's affecting your trying to conceive journey? Or is this be something, I should be thinking about? So, when I plan my second child or, plan to have my first child, I should take into this timing into the consideration. So this is a perfect test for that. And again, use the same code, Black Friday 20, to get 20% off. And also Mira is not just about the hormone tracking or fertility tracking. We're trying to create the ecosystem for our users. And if you go to our website, and you can see we offer many other things. We offer a prenatal vitamin, and as Dr. Tara mentioned, that's it's pretty important to consider supplements, especially if you have a goal. For example, if you're trying to conceive, and you probably should start to take this 3 months before your actual conception, and that will help with the baby growth and brain growth or something like that. And also we offer fertility tea. We're about to launch a pregnancy tea, and we have a lot of digital products as well, such as the meditation program. And those meditations purely just for people with the concern about hormone, concern about trying to conceive, or hormone imbalances, really trying to focus on regulating your hormone back. And we also have a course on our website, and that's about to teach you the experience and the knowledge you should know when you track your hormone and trying to conceive. And I saw some questions about how to order Mira. So everything can be found at miracare.com. So Anna just sent a link in the chat. It's miracare.com/mira-shop. And you just go to our website and you will see. And also I highly recommend you to register in our email. So when you are on the Mira website, you will see the pop-up window. So because once you register in the email, you will receive emails about this kind of promotion and also webinar opportunities like this. And we have many other new product launch. We have tons of free contents to educate ourselves about our body, our hormone tracking, hormone health, or so on. So as I mentioned before, so we offer many other products, and here's the same code. And don't forget to take advantage of this and check it out on our website. We also have a Facebook group. So in addition to sign up on our website, you can also join this Facebook group. There's more than almost 10,000 people here. So they're Mira users, and some of them are people potentially interested in Mira. They talk about their journey. They talk about how to understand their cycle, their curve. So it's more than just about the product. Great. So now I think we have gone through all the presentation. So I will, let me see how I will stop this share. So what I will do is I will go through some Q&A. So let's see what are some questions in the chat. I saw some earlier questions for Dr. Hara.
One I forgot to share too. One had said where to find me. I live mostly on Instagram. TikTok has become a thing for me that's blown up, and I'm just running with it. Tara B Fertility is my username across all platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I have a podcast, Hopeful Hints, an infertility podcast. And then you can find me as Tara Brandner on YouTube. I just started putting out more educational videos on a variety of women's health and fertility things as well. So I'm trying to just get good information and education and content out there for you guys as well.
Sounds great. Yeah, so I saw some questions in the chat. Maybe this is one for Dr. Tara. So Alexa was asking about if her PDG level are usually normal, but in one cycle is low in the luteal phase, but the BPT is high and normal. Should they be concerned? I think many of us have gone through this kind of one time off situation. Is that something normal, or we should take action?
Yes, I would say normal. If it was really just one cycle, so many things that in like a little bit we talked about today. What was happening? Were we ill? I forgot to mention, being ill and having an illness can impact our cycle, and that's where that immune system response kind of goes hand in hand with our hormones too. Was there higher levels of situational stress or happenings around you that impact those cortisol levels and your hormones as well? So I think if it's just one and isolated, we all have that and know that it's normal. But if it's consistent patterns or it's happening 2 in a row and that kind of thing too, where we want to dig a little deeper.
Sounds great. And another question from D. So what are some good hormone tests to track off this? Is it a Dutch test? So maybe Dr. Hara can, I know each test has their different use case.
Yeah,
so you can talk a little bit.
It's really individualized based on what kind of symptoms you're having. I do use the Dutch test a lot in my practice. It just has so many, including cortisol levels and things we can look at. There are some saliva ones out there, some home finger prick, like Everly Wells, Modern Fertility, those kinds of ones as well. So there's so many that I do recommend. Like, let's say you are in the hands of a provider and they're just like refusing, and you have to stay with that provider because there's some, I think, that are tied in, right, to certain providers or healthcare systems. This is where you get to be in control and order home testing kits and things like that. And then do some of these things at home, urine, blood, saliva tests at home. And I encourage you to kind of look around out there. There's a lot of them out there nowadays.
Sounds great. And also want to add to on top of that, it's about, I think you may want to understand what you need. If you're just trying to understand your like a fertility level, like a hormonal pattern, so maybe you can do the blood test. And if you're trying to understand, how hormones are changing on a day-to-day basis and trying to find the, fertile window, you may consider something like Mira or some other, the more like a day-to-day of the hormone test is quite different.
And I think you can see a lot with doing day-to-day tests, like what is your estrogen doing and is your progesterone spiking when it shouldn't be? And I think that's really powerful information to have to also correlate with symptoms that you might be having as well when you're collecting that data to take into a healthcare provider.
Yeah, that's totally agree. And Emma is asking about they're trying to get pregnant and they have been trying for so long. Her fertility is fine, but her partner has a low sperm count. So what can we do on his side? Maybe there's some general tips.
I have podcast blogs on this topic. There's a lot of products. We always think it's us as the female when really I see a little improvement in men's sperm as well. They have a 74-ish day turnaround in their sperm. So there's a lot of supplements with like zinc and vitamin C and CoQ10 and things like that, vitamin D. Same things I mentioned for you, they should be taken too. I always tell my patients, you get a pill planner, he gets a pill planner, and we're doing this together. And sometimes even if it isn't him, we could all use a little boost in some supplements and minerals and things like that too. And then it doesn't just feel like it's a you factor in the fertility space too. Like you're both taking your supplements together and you both, are doing things together. But we do know that there's supplements, lifestyle changes. Is he sitting a lot? Is there a lot of heat? Changing in the underwear to improve our sperm count too. But I think it's definitely possible. And oh my goodness, general tips to help get pregnant. I feel like I have so many. If you don't have your Mira machine, do that. And really everything we talked about, if you implement, these are all fertility friendly tips, from walking to increasing your protein and fruits to sleep. Those are all fertility friendly lifestyle things that I know if you're like me, when I was going through this, I was like, what else can I do? Okay, I'm doing that. What's next? Like, what else can I be doing? And sometimes it's just stepping back and like, you are doing all the right things. And if it is his sperm, let's get that honed in and see if that can really help too with things.
Mm-hmm. And I want to add on top of that is that the Mira also has it's setting a sperm test as well. So again, if you go to our website, miracare.com, and you go to our shop page, and it's pretty affordable price. And for this one, you probably don't have to test every single day, like female hormones changing every day. But it's once you do some lifestyle improvement and some more exercise, maybe that worth to check, once a while to see how things
same
are
things
going.
we talked about for you, he's doing too, and it'll help that sperm.
Yeah, great. And Janita asked a question about, is that normal to have pain a few days around ovulation?
I think it's a big word called middle schmitz or something. I have it too. I don't know if it's it happens. Okay, so you're gonna want to, like, that is my, for me, that is my endometriosis. We do feel it sometimes if it's like debilitating and like you're having troubles walking and functioning and things like that. We're going to want to take a look at that. I see it with some polycystic ovarian PCOS women as well. So if it's concerning, we do see it. There's a term for it. It happens, as well as spotting sometimes around ovulation. But we want to take a look and make sure and rule out other causes before we're like, okay, it's middle schmitz and this is just part of ovulation.
Understood. And another question I think is very commonly being experienced by many people. Michelle's asking about this progesterone peaks are the causes for mood swing, PMS, and the PMDD, and how can I balance out? Worry about the PMS and the PMDD days, feel like a short depression.
I would say, without knowing too much, it's usually estrogen that's the main culprit of this one. And we see it during that progesterone time because there's that change going on. I call it like cliff diving. Like your estrogen is like, we want a nice walk down the hill. It's like, boom, like down, and the progesterone does its thing up. And so it's usually the estrogen that's more responsible for that than not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there any tips you can do, if you have really bad PMS,
we should really do an evaluation of your hormones and see when and what's going on. Track a month and see, what's going on with that. Get some testing done. Implement things we talked about today, but there's definitely, in the meantime too, there is many prescription. If it is debilitating and it's bothering you and it's interfering with your life, there's work with a provider who can help with some prescription things. I always tell my patients, because some don't always want that, we can take them off. We can stop them. They can be temporary while we're balancing and figuring it out. So I would recommend finding a provider and working on to find maybe even a temporary medication to help you in the meantime, ruling out some of those medical conditions that could be causing that before just saying, also that it's that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Perfect. And the D is asking a question about what is FSH level of menopausal woman, and how do we know if we're approaching?
Well, I would say that would depend on the testing. I think blood testing is usually a consistent elevated level of 30. Do you guys use something different with your machines?
Yeah, so urine, the unit will be different, and so if you're considering using Mira, and it's difficult to say because once you got into there and the algorithm will calculate, they have a big data for based on many other users baseline and also based on how your cycle is going. But if you use Mira, the app will
Yeah,
tell
it's
you.
usually a consistently elevated level of 30. And then of course, when you see yourself skipping periods or, going several months without, and of course, menopause is 1 year without your menstrual cycle, along with, I check some, some AMH levels and things like that too, sometimes with patients, just to kind of help monitor and track.
Got it. And maybe a couple more questions. And Hema is asking about, is high acidity or GERD a symptom of hormone imbalances?
It could be. I would always say I want to rule out other things first before saying that hormones are. There's a lot of things that can cause that. It's not beneath me to run food sensitivity testing on patients too. And there's a lot of stool kits. There's a lot of discussion on a condition called SIBO that's out there. There's a lot of, let's rule out the GI causes really thoroughly first and then look at that. But usually I see that correlated with actual intake of foods, or, ruling out ulcers and stress. There's things like that you'd want to rule out first before saying it's hormones.
Sounds great. And I think we can take one more question. They ask about this Mira test, all the extra hormones that the doctor mentioned. So Mira now tests about LH, estrogen, and the PDG and FSH. And as I mentioned, we're working on the HCG, and we're also exploring some other directions. For example, this stress hormone, Dr. Tyra mentioned multiple times, or self-care hormone. So cortisol. That's pretty, like, there's a whole bunch of other hormones too, and they're not really the hormone going through your cycle, but it's more like affecting your cycle. If you're being stressed out, or you cortisol is out of balance, and your cycle could be a cause for your cycle irregularity, difficulties trying to conceive, and also mood swing as well. So Mira is working on that, and so really we're trying to aim to give you the most comprehensive picture about what's going on in your cycle. Great. I think we're a little bit running out of time, and let me put the slide back. So then I really want to appreciate everyone for being here, and I hope today's presentation is really helpful to you. And I'm now putting the handout on the screen. So if you want to download what we have talked here, so here's the opportunity. And also I want to give 2 more polls. So please let us know how we did. And your feedback is really important. And, we highly appreciate. This will help us to shape our future webinars to even better, format, topic-wise, content-wise. It's your webinar. This webinar series is completely free. It's purely just trying to help, our fellow women, having a better understanding of your body. Great. So we'll give leaving 5 more seconds for you guys to complete this poll. Okay, great. Thank you so much. With that, I think that's it for today's webinar. And again, I really appreciate Dr. Tyra to being here. So Dr. Tyra, do you have any final words for our audience?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm an open inbox as well. So if you follow me on especially Instagram, I connect with you guys. You're getting me all the time. I hope you enjoy the education videos and content as well on YouTube and my podcasts. Follow along and let me know if there's any topics too that I can better provide you guys information with.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. And if I don't talk to you guys, have a great holiday. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see you next month.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.